Welcome to another episode of the School Motivational Speaker podcast. This podcast is very specifically to help raise aspirations, raise the goals, and give specific strategies and tactics for young people to help build themselves, build their lives, not just academically, but beyond academia. But of course, I also appreciate that most of our viewers are going to be parents, teachers, educators. So this will be very useful for you. Our collective effort is about taking a child, and it takes a village to raise a child, right? So we're working as a community to help individual children to reach their greatest heights. So today we're going to be talking about something that's very important. You know, when you have something at your fingertips all the time, like LinkedIn, for example, we take it for granted. And most people have no idea what a powerful, magnificent tool it is to leverage your personal brand, leverage your academic career, your business, and so much more. So rather than just interview anybody random, I was lucky enough to come across one of the world's top LinkedIn profilers. Without further ado, welcome Tony K. Silver.
Good morning to you, sir. How are you?
I'm absolutely amazing. So, Tony, why is LinkedIn such a powerful platform, generally first, and then very specifically for young people?
It's a very powerful platform because of the growing size of it. So, for those who don't know, it is owned by Microsoft. So it's owned by a very large corporation, and they are claiming that we have reached 1 billion members across the world. So its reach is fantastic. Professional people have it as their trusted platform of choice and have done for quite a while. So realistically, if you apply for a job, if you're looking to do business, the likelihood is that your future employer or the people that you want to do business with are going to have a presence on LinkedIn. The word professional is really important because obviously there are other platforms out there. I will state that LinkedIn is not social media because many of the things that are used for social media don't actually work on LinkedIn. And it's seen, therefore, as a personal professional platform. Recruitment, absolutely, it was one of the key things it was brought into the world. In May the 5th, 2003, 5 guys in the HR space in America gave birth to LinkedIn. And for probably the first decade, that was really all it was. It was a recruitment tool. It still is, but it does so much more. But it is the tool that a very, very, very large amount of business use for many different things. And therefore, understanding how to use it is imperative.
So, what are the most common myths or misconceptions that maybe young people have potentially about LinkedIn?
I don't think they think it applies to them. That's the first thing, because when I go in to schools and teach, obviously, I'll try and find out how many the students are on and how many are not. And it does vary from school to school. And when you sort of go and have a little talk to the people that aren't on there, it's because they didn't really understand the importance of it. They didn't understand how it could actually affect their future. And in fact, more than once I've had someone come up to the end of me and said, "Thank you, Mr. Silver. I didn't know how important LinkedIn would be to my future. Now I know." And it's all down to you. There's lots of myths about LinkedIn around the business world in general. There's lots of things said about it, lots of misconceptions. And at one stage, my marketing was all about demystifying it for people because they weren't too sure what they were doing. And that's most definitely the kids think that why do they need to be on it? If they think it's another form of social media, as I say, that is not the way to look at it. And it could be, well, I'm been in education for a few more years. Why is it relevant for me, etc., etc. So that's probably the main one, and they don't think it applies to them. It's that thing for the adults. Will actually know from the age of 16 onwards, you can have a LinkedIn profile, and that is a very vital fact.
A lot of young people, when they go onto social media, of course, all their mates are doing it, so they can easily copy and learn from each other. But in the case of LinkedIn, of course, this won't be the case. Not everyone's going to do it. So this is for targeted, this, for young people who really want to make a massive inroads with their career. And I want to give you a real life example. So my son graduated from university. He got his first job. He didn't like it. This is in quantity surveying. Posted on his CV on LinkedIn, and he got a job. And the day he got a job, because of his degree, and the quality, he got a first class degree. He got actually approached by 2 or 3 other companies to go and work for them. He didn't even apply to them, which is absolutely fascinating that companies would approach you. So, how can a young person approach LinkedIn without feeling overwhelmed and intimidated? How do they get past that intimidation factor?
Yeah, it's a good question because ultimately, as it's seen as a platform for the adults and professional people, etc., and and they're students, etc. The way that I normally start off with my sessions is to let them know that actually, I've been working on LinkedIn for 15 years, and in that time, being conservative, 95% of people on LinkedIn don't know how to use it. And therefore, the kids are not at a bigger disadvantage at all because a lot of the people that they'll be interacting with don't actually know what they're doing. So it's not as though they're going onto a platform where everyone else is really proficient on it and everyone's doing really well. Everyone's generally pretty much struggling to understand. They're confused and frustrated. So it's not that big scary thing that they think it is. And actually, one of the things I say to them, once you've got the fundamentals of LinkedIn sorted, you're probably going to be up there in the top 5% of people on LinkedIn anyway, and that's regardless of your age.
Mm.
And one of the things I say to them is, when you get a job, if you're going to be getting a job rather than working for yourself, and you walk into that and you find that, yeah, if you're in the top 5% of people in that particular company that knows how to use LinkedIn, that's going to be a big advantage for you. So don't be scared of it. It's very logical. LinkedIn is very logical. There's no, I often use the terms, I'm not a rocket scientist. We used that earlier. Not reinventing the wheel. It's really, it's just that LinkedIn themselves and Microsoft have been very poor about explaining to people exactly what it does, how to set it up, and the changes that regularly happen on it. But once you know them, actually, it is just another business tool. And for kids, take away the word business, it's a recruitment tool. So if they want to go and find themselves a work placement, or they are looking to leave education and go and find a job or start their own business, it's the tool that everyone uses. So wouldn't it be a great idea to actually understand the fundamentals before you go out there?
Talk us through 2 or 3 things, maybe more, that you think, okay, to get started, you just need to do this. And we'll expand upon that a bit. And this is not a workshop, by the way, for those of you watching or listening. This is not a workshop, but this is just to get you started and impress upon you what a powerful tool can be. We can go into that further. So, what would you suggest are the key things they're going to
Yeah.
do?
When you join LinkedIn initially, you are put into a process, and it is intuitive. They will tell you the stages that you need to fill in, and when you first join LinkedIn, regardless of whether you are at school or you're a business person, regardless of it, I got a client who's 84, and I had to teach her how to do it. So there are some basic sections on LinkedIn that you need to fill in, but you don't need to be worried about the whole thing. I say to people, we need to look at certain areas. They will definitely fall under the fundamental side of it. So yeah, when you set up a LinkedIn profile, there are certain areas which are really, really important for students to look at. The first one is the one that everyone needs to look at. It's what we call in the trade the top card, but don't get confused with jargon. It's basically what people see when they land on your profile. So if you go and look at anyone's profile or they look at yours, there's 3 key items that they will see. There's a big banner across the top of LinkedIn. In the left-hand side of that is embedded your headshot. And underneath your name, there's a piece where you can put some text in there. This, I think, for most people is really important. I actually have it as my first pillar of LinkedIn when I train people, because if this isn't right, then actually the rest of your LinkedIn profile can become redundant because people need to scroll. So LinkedIn's quite a long, so we don't need to worry about all the sections at this stage. But even if you fill in the ones that you do, which we're just about to go through, you still got to scroll down. Okay. But the viewer has also got to scroll down to see that information. So I say to people that getting those banner, headshot, and headline correct, giving the person viewing good reason to scroll down, is the first thing you need to worry about. Well, in fact,
Mm.
don't use the worry. I hate the word worry. It's so when you put a banner up there, the banner you get with LinkedIn is it's a pastel shade. I say people, go and put a banner up there which has got a image around what it is that you're looking to do. What are you working with the careers people's? What industry are you looking to go into? And not everyone knows the answer to that at this particular stage.
Mm.
But also, what are you specializing in? What subjects are you majoring in at school and education? Put them up there, so when someone lands on it, they know that you're really interested in mathematics, or you're a creative or something like that. It just gives them a feel of what it is that you're all about.
What came to my mind was, if someone's mathematically orientated, the banner might be like, those images you see, lots of mathematical equations, and it looks like it's very mathematical. Because if I was looking for a mathematician and that I spotted that, I think, that's an interesting person. Let
Exactly.
me.
I always use the term, let it affirm to the person that's viewing it that they're in the right place. So if they are looking for someone with a mathematics bias, it hits them in the face. The banner is full of those equations, or a calculator, or, if you're accountants, have some, accountancy spreadsheets up there and things like that. Give people a clue as to what it is that you are majoring in. If you're creative, absolutely exactly the same sort of thing. You do need a current headshot. It will count against you if you don't. Headshot for a reason, and the reason is that two-thirds of people, not only are they visually orientated, but two-thirds of people will use their mobile phones, which obviously students use them all the time. That's the first port of call. Well, the screen on a mobile phone is a lot smaller than your laptop, obviously, but therefore your headshot will be smaller, which is why we say you need to have a headshot so people can make out your characteristics. It's pure and simple, and that's the main reason for it. And then the headliner sits underneath your name, needs to sort of complement the banner. So it needs to tell people what it is that you do. You're a student at a certain school studying certain things, tell them about your aspirations. Also, even at this stage, start to allude to the fact that, if you're in the debating team, or if you play sports, or you're a prefect, or you're, head boy, head girl, it's a very good idea to put it in there to show the people looking in what it is. Give them the reason to scroll down, is what I say to people. So there's enough information to get them interested, understand what it is. As I say, you won't know exactly what you're after. A lot of people, a lot of kids will not exactly, but you have an idea. Put that information in there. You've got 220 characters available into your headline. Use them just to tell people, because we want them to scroll. And that's the main thing. There's lots of other sections below it. As I say, we haven't got to worry about all of them, but for them to see any of them, they've got to scroll, and therefore we need to give them reasons. We need to give them a clue as to what it is that we're interested in.
If, for example, you're somebody who's, I don't know, interested in car mechanics, you might put down in your profile a aspiring car mechanic looking for work experience in whatever area. Would that be useful?
Yeah, you tell people what it is that you're looking for. Yes, and as I say, don't think it's just professional. It's absolutely okay for you to put in your hobbies as well, because a lot of these soft skills are what people are looking for. A lot of people will not just employ you because of your skill set, the hard stuff, the qualifications and all that. They'll also be looking for team players and leaders and things like that. And if you are captain of this and some of that, it's also worth putting down there. It is important because, as I say, that top bit, and it can be person in business. I will say this to everyone, your LinkedIn profile can be quite a long scroll, but they're never going to scroll unless that top bit. So yeah, just think about it. Talk to your careers advisors there about what it is that they think would be good, and you might change. And that's the other thing. Do not be scared of changing things on LinkedIn. Okay, I could ask Harun to go in and change some bits on his. As I'm talking to people on a regular basis about it. Yeah, it's not a good thing. In fact, it's a really good thing, because in the background, the little LinkedIn algorithm loves it when you're on the platform, but also when you make changes. So you're never going to get it right first time. Okay.
If a young person wanted to put it to advantage, how can they use LinkedIn? What can they do with LinkedIn? So let's say the young person's 15 years of age, so GCSE years, not quite GCSE yet. How can they use it to their advantage? Well, how would it be useful? Is there a reason they should even do it? Maybe.
Well, at 15, they can't. It has to be 16. So just make a line on that. You have to be 16 to be on LinkedIn.
Okay, so
Um,
that's an important distinction. You see, I didn't even know that. So you have to be 16 to do it. There's
have
no
to be
point.
16. Yeah,
Okay, so we're now
absolutely.
either GCSE or GCSE time, but up to A level. What are the different ways it will be useful for them?
We're talking about looking into the future about they may start a company, they may go and work for someone else. Well, let's come back somewhere down the line, and I don't know, depending on what particular schools and what relations they have with the local community, etc. Work experience. I mean, there may be other words for it these days. I'm in my 60s, and that's kind of what it was back in my day. But work experience is important. Even summer jobs are important. As soon as you apply for a job with a company nowadays, they know that once you're 16, you can have a LinkedIn profile. Okay, they know that, and therefore, if they go and search for you and they can't find you, I'm not saying it would count against you. I don't want to put fear into people, but it may be more advantageous if they do find something, because they will judge you around that. So if you can have a professional looking profile, they're not expecting a 16-year-old to be absolutely rocking LinkedIn. Don't get me wrong. They're taking these exams for a reason. Okay. They have got an idea of where they want to go, etc. So putting that onto LinkedIn. So when we come down further into the sections, this is where that sort of information is really important. Go back to the old days of 2003. Think of it as an online resume, CV, whatever you want to call it. And there are certain things that you would put on there. And if you are yet to take the exams, it doesn't matter. Put it on there that you are studying to take those exams. Let people know what the progression is. Because I was taking exams in my 20s, long after I left school. I went into higher education because I had to go back and learn things that I didn't learn at school. So you're always learning. So it can be used absolutely for that. So the basic profile will help them, because if they do reach out to the big bad world and they do reach 16, there is expectation that they will have a profile. Now, this is going to be mainly the B2B world, not so much in the B2C world. I'm going to be very honest
Just to
about that. So
business to business, just to clarify that B2B is
all
business
right.
to
So
business.
yeah, business to business rather than business to consumer. It does work for both, but mainly business to business. So, the obvious things, if they are going to become an accountant or something like that, those companies are using LinkedIn extensively. I don't expect someone to find a job as a warehouseman via LinkedIn as is something that's going to happen on a regular basis.
When it comes to parenting and teachers, are there anything that they can do to help our young audience to build their LinkedIn profile? Is there any resources they can provide?
So say, I think they themselves are a resource. And what they need to do is to have a very clear idea of how they can actually help the student work out what it is that they want to be. As a very vital role of the careers advisors to actually not just tick boxes, but to actually look at the child, see where they want to go, and then work with them around the sections that we talk about on LinkedIn that they need to fill in. They can help them. They can work with them. I always have the careers advisors and the head of sixth form, all that always sitting on my workshops, and they're making notes as they go as well. So they're learning as well. But it's just there to help them, to work with them, because it is intuitive. But there'll be some questions and some bits on LinkedIn they're not too sure about, and therefore it's be there as an ear that can bounce ideas off. Do you think it's a good idea to do this, etc., etc. So yeah, really, that's the sort of support they need to do, because ultimately the charge of the careers advisors having a superb LinkedIn profile are also quite remote as well, but they're on it, they're using it, and so they can actually use their experience to teach them. But they need to work around certain areas and say there are certain sections which are important.
We need to create a workshop for careers advisors, actually, by the sounds of it. But let us, while we're on that topic of adult LinkedIn users, I've noticed that teachers are notorious for not, not being on LinkedIn, and B, if they are on LinkedIn, with absolute bare minimal information that says anything about them. So is there, I mean, I don't know, maybe they've got other avenues, but is there any benefit? I know there is, but I'd like to hear what are the benefits of for teachers to have a up-to-date LinkedIn profile, even though they might be settled in a 20-year career at a school?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let's go back to the statement that you've made. A lot of people make. Just put in to my LinkedIn search, head of sixth form. That's in a school. There's 1.63 million people. So don't think that the teachers are not on LinkedIn, because they are active. That's a completely different question. Absolutely. And if they're settled, absolutely, teachers do move around as well, so they can also see that as a career platform. And they probably had a look. So they've probably got a certain amount of training, and they're looking at it, and they will share information in these careers groups on various platforms, etc. People are starting to understand, certainly by the feedback I'm getting from talking to schools in the last 3 or 4 months, LinkedIn is something that may have been overlooked in the past. Some of the careers people say that they do some basic training for the kids on it, but it's probably not enough. And I had one actually say to me, I can either get you in as an explorer, or I can continue to teach them myself. And I said, well, the answer there is ask the children what they prefer. The answer came back. So the careers people, they need to learn a bit more, but them using it will help them be able to help the kids use it. So they can go and experience it. They can go and try things, which then they can feed back to the children. Because, things on LinkedIn change every day. There's lots of discussions going on. There's lots and lots of groups. There's so many different facets to LinkedIn, which you can use. But obviously, to use anything in life, the more you do it, the better it becomes. I think for many of the careers advisors and the people sixth form, head of sixth form and all that, have a go. And I know that time is an element that none of us have got, seriously, but ultimately there are things built into LinkedIn that means you can actually start scheduling your posts nowadays. So you don't have to be sat at the desk and pushing the button and publishing it, because you're probably not at the desk, you're in the classroom teaching. But yes, you can be doing it at 10 o'clock at night, etc. So they need to get more involved. They need to, experience it more, and they can pass their experiences down to the children, because it's going to get to the point where the kids are going to know far more than the careers advisors on the subject matter if they're not too careful.
LinkedIn has been very useful for me for sure. Certainly for at least one of my sons. The other one's less active. Can you share any kind of inspiring story of something that's happened for someone on LinkedIn as a result of using LinkedIn? It's been useful for their journey.
I've worked with various schools, but I also work in higher education, colleges, universities, etc. I had something just before Christmas where I had a student on one of my online master classes, and they were really involved in it. They were asking lots of questions, which is, I always try and tease out of people, there's no such thing as a silly question if you don't know the answer. It's not a silly question. And there's probably someone in the room who's also thinking the same thing. So please ask it. And, they were really, really, and I knew that they were pretty much towards the end of their education, and they were looking, the changes. So they have to implement the changes. That's a big thing, regardless of who you are. There's no point in learning anything if you don't implement it. It's a bit pointless. And this student had implemented it, and they had got themselves an internship at the company that they wanted to. So they knew the process. They'd applied to the company because their LinkedIn profile was set up properly. It said all the right things, and actually, he said it was a he. It came up in the interview as well about how impressed they were with it, and he was able to answer questions on LinkedIn, which just, wouldn't say it blew them away, but it was one of the deciding factors that they took him on. And he said that he is actually keeps getting asked by some of the employees to have a look at their profile for, because so he's got a job based upon my training, which is ultimately what I really, really hope is going to happen continually now, moving forwards all over the years. Because it might be I train someone this month, they might not leave education for 2 or 3 years, but if it helps them move into where they want to be, then that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. That's what the goals I need to be achieved.
It's interesting that LinkedIn's been around long enough to be able to now say that your job might change, your career path, meaning the profession, might change, your relationships might change over the years, but actually LinkedIn will be, if you allow it to be, of course, the one constant variable throughout this whole period. So it also provides for fascinating reading. I mean, I know my own biography is fascinating reading, where the different things I've done. So, but navigating social media can be tricky, particularly for young people. Is there anything that young people can do to avoid the pitfalls of LinkedIn, and maybe about oversharing or undersharing? Is there anything they can do to avoid any
Yeah.
pitfalls like that?
Yeah, I mean, the first statement I'll make before any workshop I do, whether it's online or in person, is LinkedIn is not social media. Okay. You cannot act on LinkedIn as you would social media.
Mm.
So let's get that clear. There are technical reasons why, but also there are very good reasons. It is a professional platform. You can't go and talk about the party you went to last Friday with your friends and what happened there. So one of the first pitfalls is to get into your head that it is not social media, and therefore we can't act in that way. We can act in a professional way. Don't overshare information, absolutely. But experiences, tell people about experience. Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn has been accused of becoming too personalized recently, and there are changes afoot to change that. But actually, when you're a youngster, that's those sort of things are really. But if you can try and build any sort of business analogies into it or some experience analogies into these sort of things, it's really, really useful. Beware of people reaching out to you, but that's pretty much in life, I think. But on LinkedIn, if someone sends you a connection request, do a little bit of research on them, go and look at their profile. If there's not an awful lot around, then there's a fairly big red flag for me.
Yeah.
There's lots of people still using automated software and other bits and bobs. The safest, if you're not sure, just decline it. Realistically, don't even be fooled by the on LinkedIn. There's a little bit that says that these people are also joint connections. So I could go and look at someone's profile, and it could say Harun's also connected to this person. For me, that is not just a good enough reason to do it, because ultimately, I've seen some people that are connected to people that are well and truly they shouldn't be. So have a little look, have a look around. If in doubt, ask some questions, ask other people.
As adults, one of the things is when I get connection requests, first of all, if they haven't got a profile picture, I'm like, well, you're not even interested in your own profile, so I have no reason to be interested in your profile. So that's an instant decline. If there's minimal on their profile, it's an instant decline. And I also look at their history of what they've been up to as well. Is this a person I actually have a reason to speak with, a reason to talk to? One other thing which I find frustrating is when people connect. So you've just connected. So let's say we've met at a party, we've shook hands, but we don't say a word to each other. Like, well, why did you connect with me? At least say, hey, nice to meet you. This is what I found interesting. Just want to connect with you. Or the opposite end, it's to say, let's get married, meaning they start selling stuff to you as well. So there's a few things that are frustrating, but when it comes to young people, definitely I would agree that check their profile out before you connect and do start some communication. And you can always disconnect from people.
Yeah.
Remember, as a young person, you are there not to make friends, but to make connections. There's enough Facebook, there's
Mm,
not Snapchat. You're
yeah.
probably not on Facebook anyway, because there's all us oldies left on Facebook now. So it's about actually building a relationship, professional one, that is. So keep that in mind. So the future of work is revolving with AI and LinkedIn and everything. Let's pretend for a moment the people who are listening to us are 17, 18-year olds. They want to maximize their use of LinkedIn, keep in mind AI. Intuitively, what are the kind of guidelines that come to you and say, right, in the future, we're heading in this direction. This is what you might want to be aware of in the future, not this moment for your profile, but in the future.
Yeah, I mean, AI is with us. It has been for a while, but obviously it's become extremely of the moment. LinkedIn itself is trying out lots of different AI integrations within the actual platform itself. And I think one of the most profound things that I've heard, which I still remember to this day, and I tell people and they university go, "Oh wow, that's great." It's another fellow speaker, and he said, "Just flip the AI around the other way and think of it as IA, and it's information assistant. Think of it that way, and it kind of starts to make an awful lot of sense. It's here, it's with us, it's not going away. Okay, it will get better." As we speak at the moment in time, the integration within LinkedIn isn't that clever, so I wouldn't possibly. But people will consider using AI for posting, etc., and doing stuff on LinkedIn. I don't have any issues with it, and this will become more and more prevalent as we move forwards because it will save time. What I say to people is really ask a lot of questions about. So I had to do a presentation to a school recently at very short notice indeed. And I had to set slides, and I didn't have time to do much, but there's one slide that just didn't work for schools. Okay, it was very business related, but the rest of the deck was good. So I need to change this, and I went into Chat GPT. There are others, of course, and it's not the best one in the world, but I ask so many questions of it. Please write a LinkedIn about section 4, a 16-year-old student at a college that does this, that plays sport. I gave it so many criteria that when I pushed a button, also asked for it to be a certain number of characters long. When I pushed a button, I only had to spend about 5 minutes just humanizing it. So it
Mm.
can work really, really well. And it was then embedded into the slides, and it worked really, really well. Embrace it. It is a business tool. Same way as LinkedIn is just a business tool. I'm a massive advocate for it, but it is just a business tool. Don't fear AI taking your job. Okay. What they're saying now is I'm sure Harun's heard this, is it's the people that understand how to use AI are the people you need to fear. And if you're in a job and AI can be used in your job, and you've made no attempt to try and learn how to use it, that's when you could be at risk. So embrace AI. Like most things, be slightly wary. It definitely needs to be humanized, because ultimately we've all got our own character, we've all got our own voice, and there is lots of software out there as well, if you don't know, that can monitor AI stuff and tell you it is AI and it's not being generated by Harun. So also be aware of that. But it's there. Embrace it. Like most things, just be slightly aware of it. Just ask a few questions. Always seek advice. Now I'm 63, and of course you lot are going to be a lot younger than me, but I still use lots of experts, and some of them are a lot younger than me. But I always refer to them. If I'm not too sure about something, rather than wing it, I'll ask someone, and I strongly suggest it's exactly the same for you. If you're not too sure, go and ask someone. Maybe one, maybe two people. I don't care. But look out for some advice from other people, because it is invaluable.
There's different types of personality types, which we will talk about in another episode. But there's one personality type who are very introverted, who will have introverted thinking. No, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just that they try to figure out all the problems by themselves and come to the answer. And these guys make good accountants, engineers, process-oriented people. But there's another type, opposite type, which is extroverted thinkers, which what they would do is they'll get a problem and they'll put it out to everybody. It's who you know. Then they'll come up with the answer. Now, here's the thing with AI is I love AI, but I'm also very keenly aware that it doesn't always come up with the right answers, like you mentioned. So I've used Chat GPT, and the one that I really like even more is Bard AI, which is the Google-owned one. I found that they have the strengths and weaknesses, but both of them sometimes come up with answers. And you think, that's a load of hogwash. That's absolute rubbish. So,
Mhm.
yes, use it as a tool to give you information. Just think Google on steroids. So it's a very good tool to bring information together, but then you need to decipher it. So if you're using it for LinkedIn, for example, it's brilliant to maybe tap into Bard, for example. I'm writing my LinkedIn profile. Here are the bare bone facts. Can you put together a profile? Now, that might not be the perfect one in according to Tony K. Silva. However, it's something to get you started. So it's very, very useful in that sense. Is there any particular book or that you recommend or online course that you recommend? And you think, okay, this is a good starting point for you if you want to do that way. And we'll talk about your work in a moment.
I could say, "Oh, yeah, I've got a book on LinkedIn, and you should be buying that, of course." But I won't. And the reason I won't do that, quite simply, is because LinkedIn changes so much, that I will be honest and say I would have said within minutes of me releasing my book, it was out of date.
Yeah.
And that's the big problem, because it changes so much that if you read a book, there's going to be bits on it that are going to be wrong, etc. So what I suggest you do, rather than, and same with online courses. I took ages putting together an online course. Got it tested by people. I asked some experts, as I tend to do. But again, the same thing happened. It became never redundant, but it was out of. And I actually write one for an online business library, and in the contract it says I need to update it every 2 years, and I think absolutely brilliant. But it probably needs to be every 6 months. So what I would do is I would just follow or connect with, depends on what the situation is, some LinkedIn experts, because they, like myself, not just saying you should follow me or no, this is not a way at all, but find some experts on LinkedIn because they will be putting out stuff on a regular basis that is current, that is accurate. That's a great way. So whereas followers aren't really part of LinkedIn strength, whereas in social media there absolutely is. There's a restriction on LinkedIn. You can only have 30,000 connections. Well, why you'd ever want 30,000 connections is beyond my comprehension. But there's no limit to the number of followers. So, some of these people have got loads and loads of followers. They're putting out really good content on a regular basis about information about the changes, etc. Those are the sort of people that I would use. I use them. I'm part of a global collaboration, and I'm looking at people in America and other parts of the world who are putting stuff out and sharing stuff with me because LinkedIn rolls stuff out across the world. It doesn't just come to the UK. It goes somewhere else first. So no books. Maybe if you can find a podcast as well, obviously, because that's a thing. But yeah, LinkedIn experts around that we are very good at sharing stuff. It's part of our ethos that we share lots of information out there. And so to keep current, that's a great place to start. There will be some online courses and some books to just get the fundamentals done, absolutely. But to understand what's currently going on, it's as simple as that. You're used to it on social media. Just take that across into LinkedIn and just find, we're not going to call them influencers on LinkedIn because they're not, but LinkedIn experts who are putting out regular information around the subject matter that you're following, which in this case is LinkedIn. And you'll pick up lots and lots of information that way. And it's accurate.
So
Also, it's free. Also, it's free. There you go. It's a free resource because you haven't got to pay for the book or the course.
Of course. And so anybody who's a parent, a teacher, and they wanted to connect with you, or even so, you would train teachers up and parents, of course. You do that already, and you also work at school. So, what's the best way to get you to come into a school to either work with teachers or parents?
It's a very simple one. I deliberately used a K. My name is Tony Silver. My LinkedIn name is Tony K Silver. And quite simply, I learned this from another speaker. The K makes me exclusive. If you go onto LinkedIn and put in Tony K Silver, you will only find me. You haven't got to trawl through a list of other people. And therefore you can reach out to me. And if you've got an opportunity where you're looking to do, and it's just a complimentary initial chat with me. That's I love having those with schools and education and careers and head of sixth forms, etc. Just it's a two-way conversation, just to see what they're trying to achieve, and see if what I do is a fit, etc. But find me on LinkedIn. If you can't because you're not the right sort of connection level to send me a message, and that has become a problem recently on LinkedIn. Actually, all the information from my profile is up to date and correct. Now, I'm slightly cheeky, tongue in cheek about that because not everyone's is. So if you go in there will be my phone number, there will be my current email address. There are other ways of getting hold of me. It's all contained within that. So if you look up Tony K Silver on LinkedIn, you will find multiple ways of trying to get hold of me. Please reach out. I love having chats with people to see, because the kids are our future, and if I can help influence that, then my wife was a teacher for 43 years, and she's my inspiration because she has kids that they were 4 or 5 year olds. They now invite her to their weddings because of the
Wow,
impact she had. So if I
wow.
can have a percentage of the impact that she did, it's great. So I'm open to conversations all the time, and see how I can help people. Both, yeah, as you say, the parents and the careers on that side of it, but also, the students as well. It's an important thing in my book. So I'm very open to conversations, and I'm pretty easy to get hold of.
So one of the things is for someone who's grown up in a difficult background like myself. I grew up in difficult cities. First in inner city Birmingham, and then in a broken down place called Sunderland. It was broken down at that time. You had to work very hard to get noticed, extremely hard to get noticed. What I find LinkedIn, it makes life so much easier, equalizer, in other words, for whatever background you grow from, whether it's ethnic background or a disabled background, because when someone looks at your LinkedIn profile, what they're looking at is the character, the personality, character, the experience, the value you bring in. So it's actually, we've never used to have this opportunity before. So I'd really love to see more young people, as well as teachers, of course, to really use their LinkedIn profile. I don't get paid by them. I don't make money with them. So, I'm saying to you that if you make your profile work for you, there's so much more we could have talked about. We won't. There's so much more we could talk about, but it can make a massive difference to a young person's life by getting your LinkedIn profile right. So if you are interested in this, don't sit on it. Seriously, give Tony K. Silver a call, go through his LinkedIn profile, of course, check your own profile against his, get in touch, and just bring him into your schools. It's very important that you bring him into your schools to work directly with the young people. Here's the thing, what I found, you mentioned it earlier, that young people actually prefer to have an outsider to come and train them, because it becomes very blasé seeing the same teacher telling you so many different things. It just goes over their head. So it's better to get someone who just, that's all they do is specialize in an area, in this case, as a LinkedIn profiler. So before we end, is there any comment, question you have? Is there any question that I should have asked you that I haven't, Tony?
No, I just think I'm very much, I just want people to embrace it, not to fear it. It is seen as a business person's platform. Yes, it is, but you are the business people of the future. It is important that you embrace it, but also, ask for help. That isn't just a LinkedIn thing. That is just me. It's the thing you should do. Ask for help. Use experts. Be curious, as one of my American friends loves saying. Just be curious. But yeah, please be curious, because ultimately, if you're going into the business world at some stage, it is the platform we all use. Therefore, it is definitely worth. But there's lots more it can give. There is so much. Okay, there's allegedly 1 billion people on it and 35 million in the UK. They're not all active, but an awful lot of people are. You can build a brand on there, you can build relationships on it, but you've got to start somewhere, and the somewhere is just reach out to someone, speak to your careers people, head of sixth form, etc. about we want to get involved in this. What can you do? And when you are a careers or head of sixth form, and you understand that, as Harun said, choose between an expert and just someone. Same with me. That's why I use experts. I don't just use a generalist. I use a specialist. So it's never even a question for me. And I think the children are exactly the same. They respect experts in the field, and just ask, what resources can I get? And there are some complementary stuff as well that I can get the ball rolling with. Some sort of, I have some little sheets, PDFs that I can send people, etc. There's always something that can be done just to start the ball rolling. To just do it. I always say, I know Harun mentioned this earlier. No, I actually have a saying. It's not who you know, actually. It's not actually what you know, Harun. It's the action you take. So
Yeah.
having listened to this and listened to this information that we both given you, and doing nothing about it, really?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, doing nothing about it is not a very good excuse. Take action. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. Full details of the show and the links that I mentioned are in the description. You've been watching the Schools Motivational Speaker podcast or listening to it. My name is Harun Rabbani, and I am a school motivational speaker.